All right, it is now 1 o'clock p.m. Good afternoon, everyone, and esteemed guests. We thank you all for joining us with our Living Well with Diabetes webinar hosted by the Bureau of Chronic Disease Prevention, branded as Well Ahead Louisiana, here with the Department of Health. We have an awesome presentation planned for you all today, jam-packed with informative information for you. At the very end of our today's presentation, there will be a Q&A segment for our guests to ask questions to our keynote speakers. And at that time, feel free to drop any questions you have in our Q&A box, and you will be acknowledged during that time. Without further ado, let's hear from our Bureau Director, Ms. Avis Richard.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all so much for joining us today. I'd like to extend an early thank you to our presenters today, because as they will share with you, and as the CDC has well documented that in our country, there are over 34 million individuals who have diabetes. And in our own state, just like the CDC has declared, it's an epidemic proportion. In our state, there are probably over 500,000 individuals who have diabetes. And add to that another 100,000 who probably don't even know they have it. There are about 1.2 million who have prediabetes and have blood glucose levels that are higher than normal, but not yet enough to declare them as having diabetes. And add to that, there are approximately over 32,000 individuals in our state who are diagnosed with diabetes annually. It's a chronic condition. It requires specific treatments and appropriate individual or self-management actions. And over the past years, we've seen where the evidence-based practice proves the importance of individual dietary patterns, nutrients, and foods in the management of diabetes and prevention of complications. Self-management is known to be a key aspect in the treatment of diabetes, and patients often need to be educated to get the knowledge and skills that are required on an everyday basis to manage this specific condition. Thank you all. Thank you, Tiffany, for the introduction, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you, Avis. Our first keynote speaker for today is Dr. Dragana Lovray. Dr. Lovray is the Associate Professor of Medicine of the Section of Endocrinology and Metabolism at Tulane University Health Sciences Center. Dr. Lovray is a board certified in internal medicine and endocrinology. Her clinical and research interests focuses on cardiovascular complications of diabetes with special interests in women's health, sex differences, and the effect of sex hormones on glucose and lipid metabolism. Dr. Lovray's research is funded by the VA Office of Research and Development and the Tulane Center of Excellence in Sex-Based Biology and Medicine. In the last few years, Dr. Lovray also has been involved in research on sex difference in COVID-19. She is involved in multiple committees at Tulane and the VA and has regional and national presence at endocrinology-related societies, including the Southern Society of Endocrinologists, the North American Menopause Society, Endocrine Society, and the Association of Program Directors in Endocrinology, Diabetes, and Metabolism. Dragana is also a lead for the Louisiana Department of Health Well Ahead Louisiana Diabetes ECHO program, funded by the CDC. It is designed to provide a consultative link between specialists and community clinicians throughout the state via video conferencing technology. In addition, Dr. Lovray plays a significant role as an educator. She provides lectures and mentoring for medical students, residents, and fellows at Tulane University. She also regularly provides endocrinology consultations on the inpatient service. Without further ado, Dr. Dragana Lovray.
Thank you so much, Tiffany, and thank you all for inviting me. And of course, I think Avis pretty much gave my talk. This is a very common disease, and I think all of us need to kind of know what to do. This is the people who are diagnosed, there's a huge number. The prediabetes population is 5 times the actual diagnosed diabetes. And so this is either going to come up soon in your life, or it already is in one of those forms, type 2 or prediabetes. I will share my screen if that's okay with everybody. Or did you want, Tiffany, did you want to pull the slides I had? Whatever works.
You have the ability to share, Dr. Loveray.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that. Just give me 1 second and I will get my PowerPoint. So what I will cover today, well, actually, so I am part of the ECHO program, and it's really been a beautiful experience kind of sharing the knowledge and tips and tricks kind of on diabetes management. But what I would like to know, if it's not too much to ask, if everybody could type in what they do when it comes to diabetes in the chat, if that's available. So it would be just nice to know, are there a bunch of pharmacists on here, or are we kind of mostly doing social work side, or maybe that'll help me tailor my talk a little bit, the examples I have. But I'll start with a slide that I think applies for a lot of things in life as well as chronic disease. So you could be your own worst enemy, or you could be your best friend. And so how do we do one or the other? Let's go with the how to be your best friend. I'm not going to do the other version. So I looked up, okay, good. Thank you all for posting what you do. Excellent. So I looked up kind of 10 tips for maintaining a healthy lifestyle. So I literally Googled this, right? And so when you Google, you kind of get different websites with different results. And so this one, was essentially top 10 that I've seen from all those websites. And so in general, for us to live a happy, healthy life, we need to measure and watch our weight. We need to limit unhealthy foods and eat healthier meals. Take our multivitamin supplements, or in case of chronic disease, we would take our medications as part of this. And in addition to, drink water, stay hydrated, especially down here in Louisiana. Limit sugar beverages, right? So this would be wonderful for kind of all of us in general, for our health and energy levels and all of this good stuff, right? Including patients with diabetes more so, right? Regular exercise and staying active, reducing sitting and TV time, getting enough sleep. So this is kind of be kind to yourself, be a friend to yourself, right? Finding ways to manage your emotions, especially in those stressful situations, chronic disease management. There's a lot to do. It's a full-time job to manage 20 prescriptions or insulins, or checking your glucose in case of diabetes. And then maybe use apps or the new technology to kind of help you with movement, or kind of grading your sleep. I was joking the other day and I said, you know, I did well in school. I tried hard. I never failed things, and I failed my own sleep. So I tracked my sleep on one of these monitors, and it was like my percentages were equivalent to failing a class. And I'm like, this is just wrong. I should not be failing at my life. So, or at my health, right? And so I joke around about failing my sleep, I guess, time and health. But it's not funny. I mean, this is right, accumulated over 20, 30, 40 years. This may result in some chronic conditions and so on. So I think we need to keep an eye on these things. And so then that's general population. Then look at diabetes persons, right? People with diabetes. So what do we need to do? We need to do all of those things. Everything is the same. We need to watch our weight. We need to watch what we're eating. Maybe a little more specific instructions on carbohydrates and that sort of thing, sugary drinks, decreasing that. But essentially, it's the same thing. Now, do patients with diabetes have a lot more to do, especially if they're on insulin, or if they are taking some medications that make their sugars go down quickly and they need food nearby and so on? Yes. But again, essentially, you are doing everything. So you could look at this as, gosh, because I have diabetes, I have to do all of this. That's not being your friend so much. You could look at yourself as a friend and say, you know what, in general, I need to do 9 out of 10 of these things. And yes, because I have diabetes, I have to do the other 3 or 4 extra, and I have to do a little more time or a lot more time. But again, I think doing all of these in general is the way to go. So I will go through and kind of summarize a few things. And so I think and again, this is a short talk, so I had to cut down on what should I be doing. And of course, I didn't want to give a lecture of every little thing we do with patients with diabetes, because that's a little bit too specific, and I hate to say boring, but not as kind of not showing the big picture, right? So I think it's important to educate yourself. Again, if you're starting a business, this is your health business. It's my business to know where my health is. And if I have diabetes, then diabetes is in a way my business. And so if you were starting a business, you would educate yourself about that business. So let's say you want to grow coffee beans. You're going to educate yourself on what do you do for coffee beans? You're going to look at resources. What do I need? What do I got to get together? Who do I need? Whom should I follow for advice and so on? And then you look at advancement like, okay, am I kind of in line with what's being done now for coffee bean farm? And so similar, again, this applies for anything. You need to educate yourself as much as you can. You need to figure out your resources and use them because that's why they're there, to make this easier, smooth, and to be able to live well with diabetes. And then advancements in care. And luckily for diabetes, and with that, we talk a lot about obesity. It's really been a great last 10 years of lots of new treatments, lots of technologies, and so on. So I'll go through each of those. So taking action to decrease diabetes complications is a little more of a kind of a step up than just educating yourself about diabetes. And so how do you do that? Well, I selected kind of a couple of things that I think make a big difference and a couple of things that we cover a lot in clinic when we see patients. And so some of the key ones are how to shop, right? So the way grocery stores are laid out is you walk in the middle, and in the middle is the chips and the canned food and all the stuff that we kind of shouldn't have too much of. Let's put it that way. The things that we should add to our diet is all on the perimeter of the store. So if you think mentally, kind of where do you go to get milk? It's on the outer part. Where do you go to get yogurt, vegetables, meat? It's all on the outer part. It takes you a mile walk to get to the outer part of the surrounding sort of around the store. But to get to chips is like right there. You walk in, it's past the cashier, right there. And there's all of them are displayed beautifully. And the sale one is the first one. So you don't have to make any decisions. It's made for you. You like chips, it's on sale. I'll get this one, right? So simple, such a simple thing. You start on the perimeter and fine, you may end up at chips, but you've picked up broccoli on the way. You picked up some milk and some yogurt and some other good fats and good protein and so on. So that I think, again, it's a very simple thing. Easy to learn too. That makes it just kind of you're prepared better. Reading labels is very similar. So the label world has improved nicely in the last, let's say, 10 years. And even that kind of shows, okay, in this giant bag of chips, and I, by the way, use chips because I like chips and I know the struggle, okay? So in this big Costco bag of chips, right? What does this mean for me? So they nicely say 13 chips is so many carbs and so much or whatever, but you kind of have to know what to look for, right? So you look for carbs if you have diabetes. You're hoping for a little fiber. Now this is everybody, right? All of us should be thinking fiber and protein. And you look at cholesterol if you have a problem with cholesterol, if your medications and so on. So learning how to read labels, I think is a huge deal. Because remember, with some other diseases, you take your medications, you forget about it, right? So sometimes, let's say you have hypothyroidism, you take your medication in the morning, you're done, you don't think about it. If you have hypertension, sure, you think about salt a little bit and all these other things, but you don't have to make a decision every time you put food in your mouth. What is this good? Is it not? Is it too many calories? Is it too many carbs? So it's a lot of decision making every single meal, every single snack for patients with diabetes. So if you learn how to read labels, I think you'll be well equipped when you get to my meal. Then I could kind of see, let's say you're eating meal with colleagues and you're going to whatever place outside, right? You need to be ready kind of quick, like, ooh, which one of these makes sense for me? Because this is going to happen a lot, especially depending on what your job is. And so if you have to eat out a lot, this is gold. This is a huge deal because again, you're going to make this decision potentially multiple times today. So if you're doing it well and you know what you're doing, it's going to be great. But if you have no clue, it probably won't be great because all the stuff that tastes great is not that great for you, right? And vegetables are hard to make delicious. So a lot of places you're not going to find vegetables, whereas fried stuff and kind of bad stuff, if you will, is easy to find, easy to make delicious. Everybody wants it, right? So kind of those are some simple things. Meal prepping, again, if you know what you should be having, it's not always necessarily about deducting food. It's not about, I cannot have that, I should not have that. It's about adding also. So add good stuff to your maybe not so great lunch. Fine. That's better than not adding the good stuff, right? So if I have let's say an average meal, not great, fine, but I mean, this is what I made last night. I'm going to take it to lunch today. Fine. Real life, right? But if I think, you know what, I'll bring an apple, I'll bring some cucumbers, and I'll bring some carrots. So then you're adding a little bit of foods they're high in fiber, they'll keep you fuller longer, and they're gonna prevent that maybe not so great stuff from being absorbed quickly in your bloodstream and causing a sugar spike. Eating out, again, maybe suggesting places that are a little bit healthier, that have options that you know are good for you, that you know what to order at, and so on. Exercise, any exercise is fine. Sure, guidelines recommend 30 minutes of this or that, or 150 minutes per week is the typical, including American Diabetes Association guidelines. But you can start as simple as 10-minute walk right after your lunch. So you finish your lunch at 11:50 or at 12:50. You need to go back to work at 1. You say, you know what? I'm just going to do a 10-minute walk. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Maybe you could add another 10 minutes when you get home, and there you are, 20 minutes walking a day. Beautiful. So I think we make this overcomplicated because there's so much data out there and so much information that we think, well, I need to be lifting weights and doing yoga and doing all these flips, and I have chronic knee pains. I can't do any of this. Well, hopefully you could walk, or you could move your arms, move your leg, just kind of get your heart rate up, get moving. Maintaining a healthy weight. Of course, this is a struggle for everybody. Even in the media, I'm sure you've all seen Oprah. Again, somebody who has every resource under the sun has struggled just as much as any individual one of us. And so, make it part of your sort of discussion with your physician. Think about it, include the 3 above, and then the weight is probably going to be stable or kind of be in a better place than if you're not looking. Some people actually compare sort of chronic diseases and kind of these key, what do I do to do well with either chronic disease or a project and so on, with your bank account. So if you do never look at your bank account, you have no idea what you're doing, you're never going to save money. But if you look at it, then you have plans. You're going to say, oh gosh, I'm spending too much on here and too little on there. I got to cut down. I got to blah, blah, blah. And then you have some savings. So similarly with a business or with a disease, you have to kind of see, what do I need to do? And these are some of the steps. Now, the second one is the resources, as I mentioned. And so specifically for diabetes patients, there are great resources around. We, again, have to be interested and have to seek those out. So I think one of the most underutilized resources available through every single insurance is diabetes education class. Usually, most insurances pay for 10 hours. So this is where you go and get teachings on nutrition, exercise, diabetes, sort of management day to day, cardiovascular complications, what you should be looking out for and what you're trying to prevent, and so on. And so you could start with a 1-hour class. Sometimes these are connected with a group diabetes class, which is wonderful. I have actually precepted some of these. And you get patients with diabetes around the table, and we all talk about it. And some people have diabetes from transplant medications. Some people have diabetes from some other underlying disease, from steroids, from whatnot. And some people just have, my family has diabetes, I have diabetes kind of story. And so it's great to kind of sit down and talk to everybody and kind of what they do and tricks we do. And I remember this patient said, Super Bowl is coming, and I usually make my Jell-O shots. So what do I do, doc? Well, we talked about it. There's sugar-free Jell-O, and then there's alcohols you could put in there. She wanted alcohol. And we said, fine, you just have to be a little bit aware of what alcohol does, what's in it, and so on. So it was a really great discussion. We had a laugh, and we kind of made up a plan. So everybody was ready for whatever party, with the sugar-free Jell-O shots with whatever in it, whatever people choose to do. So again, it can be fun. It doesn't have to be so job-like or a business-like, right? Other things that I think really showed its face in a way is during COVID. So cooking classes, Zoom classes, all of this stuff is now, there's a lot online, or YouTube. I mean, honestly, even if you go on YouTube and search anything under the sun, I'm sure there's going to be a video that's going to be reasonably close to what you're looking for. So there's cooking communities, there's cooking shows, there's kind of light diabetes cooking sort of things you could follow. There's Zoom classes, exercise and cooking. There are places in New Orleans, we have a teaching kitchen, sort of a place where you could physically register, go there, and they have a kitchen. It's next to a Whole Foods store. And so this is medical students go there, patients go there, people who are exercise trainers, sort of people, they go there as well. And they teach you how to cook kind of lightly for diabetes. So less sugar, less starches, and kind of more vegetables and so on. They're diabetes support groups. So whether they're online or whether they're at your local hospital or with your local diabetes educators, again, seek those out, see how other people are doing things. Some people make everything seem so easy and light, right? So that's the people we need to kind of see what they do to make this, again, chronic disease that requires a lot of time, a little bit more doable, if you will, a little bit more like flow with your day sort of style, then you adjust your day around your diabetes, right? And then farmers markets are good places to go shop for kind of local places, get to know people, and shop for those good foods that are maybe at a better price than some of the stores, and probably healthier too. Now, as far as kind of, okay, so day to day, of course, I have to check my sugars and see all of that stuff. What do I do? And again, thank you all for posting. I see lots of program managers and RNs background and MPs, and so this is wonderful. And most of you are familiar with all of that I'm saying. I have made it a little bit more streamlined, so I'm not doing too many details, but I do want to kind of bring that big picture instead of getting bogged down with every little detail of every single day. That's kind of not being friend to yourself in a way. I think it's important to kind of zoom out of your life and say, okay, what's the big picture here? What should I be doing? Instead of, again, being so obsessed with little steps and details. And so as far as the advancement, again, there's been just a beautiful amount of medications and technology and ways to do things, and Zoom, even just Zoom alone, I think is a huge invention and kind of help that you could meet with people now and do, for example, televisits, right? So starting from the top, setting alarms. I do this a lot with my patients. I'll literally say, do you have a fancy phone and smartphone, whatever? And of course, 90% of us have got one. We've got the fancy $1,000 phone. So they will pull it out and I'll say, okay, what time is best for you? If you had to pick an ideal time to take your medicine, that you're home, you're relaxing, it's not that stressful. And they'll say, 9 o'clock or 8 or whatever. So we'll program that time. So they'll be very good at taking it when it's a good time. There's no point of putting somebody's alarm on if they're picking up their kids at 2:30. It's like you could barely get there on time. You're not even thinking about anything other than your kid or whatever you're doing. And so set that alarm at a good time. Don't just set an alarm at a random time that you think you should do it. Set it at a time where you know you can. Another one is, so that's a simple one. It's always been around. We could do that even with those old phones, right? But let alone with the new phones now, you can name it like metformin alarm, right? So it'll be great. Continuous glucose monitors. Again, even in the last year, they have really been approved much better than, let's say, 5 years ago, 2 years ago even. So getting one of these guys, putting it on, whether you want to look at it or not, it's fine. Then your physician or your provider is going to look at it and kind of make good decisions. And so I loved wearing one. I don't have diabetes. I wore one just to kind of see, like, what will it do? Is it annoying? So it's great. It gives you data. When you eat cup of watermelon, my sugars went quickly up. And I don't have diabetes. So you could only imagine with somebody who has diabetes. So it really alters your behavior. So I'm never eating a watermelon by itself again. So what I did is I said, you know what? I'm going to eat a little nuts with it and see what happens. Well, then the sugar spike wasn't peaky. It was kind of a little bump. So again, similar with patients with diabetes, you combine it with something that's going to delay absorption. And so I definitely changed my behavior. Now, I will say I was very much, what's the word, kind of surprised in a good way to kind of be able to relate to my patients. This thing beeped. At the time, I think I might have had the flu. And for whatever reason, my sugars just went crazy in the middle of the night because I took medications and Tylenol affects these. And so it woke me up like 6 times that night. And I had pretty strict limits on it. I was thinking I wouldn't go over a certain number. Well, I woke up 6 times that night and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is awful. This is horrible. Like I don't know how I'm going to do my day tomorrow. So I understand the struggle with these. If you set it too tight, it's going to wake you up every 5 minutes. I mean, who needs that? So again, there are ways to adjust it to be friendly to your lifestyle, but I do think it's a very, very good to wear at least one time to kind of see where are you, right? Versus checking your sugars, finger sticks, which gives you kind of a, picture once every while. This thing gives you kind of what are you doing all day, all night, right? The other great thing is televisits. So again, technology, you could have televisits with your doctors if you have something emergent. You could have portal messages, communicate kind of an email sort of style through electronic medical records. So this is huge, right? We don't have to call our doctor or nurse to see what's happening. You could just message, schedule a televisit. Not everybody does that and not everybody has that capability, but there are even independent companies that your insurance covers if it's something truly that you need. And then I mentioned the activity, health, and wellness monitors. Again, you could program your steps however many you want. It's going to remind you. You could have your sleep graded like I did, and hopefully you don't fail at it, and all that good stuff. And now, of course, you do need a team. So you need a whole team to take care of you with diabetes and help you take care of yourself. So you're going to have either your primary care doctor or your endocrinologist, whoever's kind of helping you look at all of it, right? You're going to have your diabetes educator, dietitian, pharmacist, hopefully. Some of the clinical pharmacists these days adjust medications. So I tell my patients, if I don't see you in 3 months, I'm hoping that diabetes educator can see you and the pharmacist can see you. So then you have 3 people to have somebody every month to do whatever change until we get you where we want you. So it's not just me. So this is a great sort of team effort quickly early on. Of course, you have your nurse. You should know your nurse by their name in the clinic. So you know when you call that, hey, whatever the nurse's name is, I'm calling about this. Do you think I need to talk to the doctor? What do I do? Blah, blah, blah. Foot doctor, of course, eye doctor, so managing and kind of keeping an eye on those complications. Mental health counselor, I think this is underutilized period in life, right? So, and with diabetes, there's extra stressors, and this, if we had a perfect way of doing this, every single patient with diabetes would have one, but not everybody does. And again, maybe televisits come in handy here. Dentist, social worker, family, friends, key, huge, right? What I didn't put on here is probably some sort of a health advocate. If you are not good at this sort of stuff, you should have somebody to go with your appointment to your appointments and help you kind of manage this. And then, of course, church or community partners, wherever you feel like you belong, that you have sort of a group to speak with and vent and get resources and so on. So just to get a tiny bit into these, we have to do these things to make sure everything is going well. As far as office visits, of course, every time you go to the doctor's office, you should have blood glucose, blood pressure, weight. Maybe, again, with diabetes, we should review meal plan and medications. And then, of course, you're going to discuss concerns. Every 3 to 6 months, you should have an A1C and probably kidney function and those kind of basic labs. And then at least once a year, full physical exam. This is not the same as, doing a televisit. Please have a physical exam. We could find so many things, even though it feels like a lot of times your providers are looking at labs a lot. We do examine you, even seeing you in the room. We see you. How did you walk? How is your mood? How is your demeanor? Are you walking properly? Is there a gait problem? So we don't have to necessarily touch you to get 100% of physical exam. Sure, we have to listen to your lungs and see if you have sensation in your feet, but just you walking in, sitting into a chair, saying, hello, Dr. So-and-so, we can see so many things. How are you behaving? How is your hair? How are you keeping, taking care of yourself? There's so much to it. Whereas on Zoom, we don't really see that. I mean, I could be wearing pajamas for all you guys know right now, and I'm not, I'm at work, but you don't know what's going on with my feet. I may have swollen feet. I may have an ulcer. You would never know, right? So some of those things are just easy to see on a visit. And then checking cholesterol, protein in urine, foot exam, dilated eye exam, flu shot, all of these need to be done once a year for patients with diabetes. And then, of course, depending on what shots, I put here every 5 years pneumonia. This may vary, but I just wanted to kind of mention it. And COVID shot these days, depending on your kind of risk. I think for us in Louisiana, and everybody, I guess, essentially travel preparations are important. Maybe I'll get to the next slide for Louisiana people. Taking a lot of medications with you because you never know, delays are happening or whatnot. So pack things in your carry-on, twice the amount that you need. It's not a big deal. Instead of 10 pills, you put 20 pills, right? It's easy weight. If you have insulin and syringes, you need all of that. Nobody's going to stop you because you have needles. It's fine. This is acceptable sort of medical equipment that you need. Testing strips, batteries, whatever is battery operated, all of your medications. Ideally, you would have a medical identification. So on the wrist or on the necklace, they make them really beautiful these days. You could even get them in gold engraved. I mean, there's really no issues with style. I know a lot of my women, probably patients, but men too. Men are very picky. They have very stylish medical bracelets these days, and an emergency snack for our patients with diabetes. Now, storm prep kind of takes that to another notch. So preparing a waterproof insulated emergency kit. So find some sort of a vacuum situation, whatever you could afford. And you should have at least 3 days of diabetes supplies at the very minimum. If you have to leave your house, you really should think you're traveling on vacation for 2 weeks. Carbohydrate source. So you need to have some sort of either glucose tablets or gels or anything that, again, if you're on insulin, especially, list of emergency contact, your list of medications, prescription bottles themselves. So we could see what exactly you're on to make sure what the dose, how frequent you're taking it, and so on. And then if needed, a cooler to keep your insulins and whatnot. And then as far as while during the storm, it's important that we identify ourselves as a patient with diabetes, right? So that if I know there's a diabetes patient next to me at some place where we're trying to kind of stay until we can go back home, I'm going to think about this person in a little differently and kind of keep an eye on them. Drink plenty of water. This is Louisiana any day, especially if you are not in your usual environment, if there's no AC and so on. Watch what you eat. Again, this is a little bit of an emergency situation, so you kind of have to be at your best to check things, take your medicine, eat well, because they may not be help nearby. You kind of could get in trouble. There might not be even medications nearby, and so on. Stick with your testing and medication schedule. So there's no skipping. This is kind of, you got to be ideal at your best. And then checking your feet, of course, always. Every day I tell my patients with diabetes, if you cannot see your foot, put it in a mirror and bring the mirror closer so that you could see them. Now, embracing diabetes is kind of the way to go. If you embrace some sort of a practice, you're going to be good at it. You're going to do what you need to do, and you'll take time to take care of it. And so speaking of embracing, there is a podcast for those of you who want to share this with your patients or listen yourself. This is a really good one, podcast talking about kind of all of this diabetes related sort of stuff. And I think it's important that we kind of send a message out there. If I have diabetes, I'm going to take out my pen at a restaurant and give myself my insulin. This models behavior for others, because a lot of my patients will say, "Doc, I'm just so uncomfortable. Like, people look at you and you take out the pen and they think you have drugs." And so people kind of are very uncomfortable. There's still a lot of stigma with this, even pills, let alone injections. Or CGM, the continuous glucose monitor that you see on this picture here. All these people are famous people, including the queen herself. Not that she wears CGM, not that I know, but even she, again, struggled with weight, and she's talking about this. So I think we all need to kind of forget the stigma, start talking about this, start helping. If somebody has a CGM, start talking to them about it. Oh, do you like your device? What do you do with that? So that way that this becomes more normal. And so then when it's normal, then we're not going to feel like, ooh, I should wear a long shirt and I should do this and that and so on. So kind of, if you can be an advocate for diabetes patients, and again, you're an advocate then for your family members, because again, just looking at the statistics, somebody in your family has it. If not in immediate household, I'll extend it for sure. So that is all I have. I hope this was kind of covered things enough depth for most of the audience. I just didn't want to go too much in details. And if there's time for questions, Tiffany will kind of lead us there.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. LaVray. If you wanted to stop share.
Yes.
Yes. That was some very insightful information. All right, and now for our next and final keynote speaker. Are you guys seeing the correct screen here? Let's see. Yes. Okay, Tammy Sun. Tammy Sun is the diabetes program manager here at Wellhead, Louisiana. In this role, she serves as the subject matter expert on diabetes management and prevention. Tammy also serves as Louisiana's diabetes self-management education and support state specialist and also National Diabetes Prevention Program state quality specialist. She spearheads the development and execution of strategic plans for diabetes prevention and self-management efforts across Louisiana through strong clinical knowledge, proactive communication, and partnership development that ensures the diabetes program meets performance measures targeted through federally funded programs and grants. Tammy is also a certified lifestyle coach and holds a bachelor's degree in biology pre-medicine. Without further ado, Tammy Sun.
Thank you, Tiffany. Next slide, please. So today we're going to talk about preventing type 2 diabetes in Louisiana, which, as we know, Louisiana is a very unique state. Next slide. As Avis said earlier, Louisiana is currently ranked 50th in the country for overall health. So how did we earn this ranking? While Louisiana is known for its great food, music, festivals, we are unfortunately also well known for our unhealthy lifestyle choices. And that causes our residents to lead the nation in statistics for obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic diseases. If we take a step back and look at the big picture, we can see there are other pieces in addition to lifestyle choices that impact health and also influence health behaviors. We can think of them as the causes of the causes because they operate on a deeper level, identifying all the pieces that impact health and how they influence health behaviors and ultimately health outcomes can help us better serve and care for our residents. Next slide. So, as Dr. Loveray eloquently said earlier, and Avis said earlier, diabetes is an epidemic in the United States, and according to the CDC, over 37 million Americans have diabetes and face its devastating consequences. Approximately 98 million Americans and more than 1 in 3 have prediabetes. So what is prediabetes? It is a serious health condition where blood sugar levels are higher than normal, but not high enough yet to be diagnosed as type 2 diabetes. What's true nationwide is also true in Louisiana. So approximately 500,791 people in Louisiana, or 14.2% of the adult population, have diagnosed diabetes. Next slide. And this brings us to the question, can type 2 diabetes be prevented? Well, great news. Yes, you can prevent or delay type 2 diabetes with proven achievable lifestyle changes, such as losing a small amount of weight and getting more physically active, even if you're at high risk. So why is prevention so important? Because type 2 diabetes is a serious chronic health condition that can lead to other serious issues such as heart disease, stroke, blindness, and kidney failure. If you can prevent or even delay getting type 2 diabetes, you can lower your risk for all other conditions. Next slide. Making healthy changes to prevent type 2 diabetes is key. A CDC recognized diabetes prevention lifestyle change program can help you build healthy new habits that last a lifetime. The National Diabetes Prevention Program, or National DPP, is evidence-based and was created to address the increasing burden of prediabetes and type 2 diabetes in the United States. Next slide. The National DPP includes 12 months of group learning and support facilitated by a trained lifestyle coach. In the first 6 months, participants will meet weekly for 1 hour to learn healthy eating habits without giving up all the foods they love, and that's pretty difficult in Louisiana. How to incorporate physical activity into busy schedules and how to manage stress, coping strategies for challenges that can derail their hard work, such as how to choose healthy foods when eating out. Dr. Loveray talked about this a little bit earlier. It's even more important for those who are trying to prevent type 2 diabetes, how to get back on track if they stray from their plan. In the second 6 months, participants will meet monthly for 1 hour to build on the skills they've learned and maintain their positive changes. The goals for participants in the National DPP are to lose 5 to 7% of their body weight and to complete an average of 150 minutes of physical activity each week. The National DPP can be hosted in a variety of settings, including faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, work sites, and schools. And there are 4 options for program delivery. So it can be delivered in person, online, distant learning, and combination of online and in person. Next slide. This is a graphic layout of the National DPP timeframe. And I just wanted to make sure that I showed you at a glance what the program looks like. Next slide. Well Ahead Louisiana has launched a media campaign called Now's the Time, with the goal of increasing awareness of prediabetes and completions of the risk tests, as well as increasing awareness of and referrals to the CDC's National DPP. To take the risk test and be connected to a local National DPP, participants can go to nowsthetimela.com. Next slide. So what if you're not really quite ready to join a lifestyle change program? Or if you want to jumpstart before programs begin, you can use this 15-page guide to help take the first steps toward preventing type 2 diabetes. And it is CDC approved. Next slide. So, starting point. What's motivating you to start this journey? What new version of yourself are you trying to create? And we can look at this in various steps. So step 1, you figure out what needs to change. The first step is finding a routine to change for the better. Assess where you stand right now. And then when it comes to nutrition and physical activity, where do you stand right now? Think about how you eat in a typical week. Do other people, such as your friends, family, or coworkers, influence what you eat? How comfortable are you with reading a nutrition label? How often do you eat out and where? And what makes it easier for you to eat healthier? What makes it harder? Think about how you move in a typical week. How much of your commute is spent walking or biking? How much time do you take or do you make for physical activity around the house, such as walking the dog, cleaning the house, or gardening? How often do you dedicate 30 minutes per day for physical activity, such as walking, biking, even swimming? What are your favorite ways to be active? Step 2, plan a new routine. Starting a new routine helps you make a positive change that will stick. Be specific and, most importantly, realistic. Plan small changes to your routines instead of big changes that are hard to stick with. Step 3, find a cue or a hint for when to use your new routine, like a specific time or place. An action right before or right after a regular routine. Here's a few more tips. Make your new routine easy and the old one harder. Decide how to make this new routine more rewarding and create opportunities to repeat and practice your new routine until it becomes automatic. Next slide. With your starting point in mind, set a weight loss goal. If you are overweight and have prediabetes, shedding just 5% of your weight can help reverse prediabetes. You have options to be successful. Here's an example to help calculate a weight loss goal of 5%. Now that you've assessed your habits and preferences around eating and being active and have set a healthy weight loss goal, you're better prepared to hit the road on your way to wellness. Next slide, please. Your plan only needs 2 key ingredients to work. It should be based on healthy eating, and it should be something you can keep doing. The details will depend on what you like and what fits in best with your life. Eat well. Good food in the right amounts does so much more for you than just helping you lose pounds. It helps you feel better and even think better. All good things. Master portion sizes. So size it up. Louisiana is a little different. We believe in just piling it on. But with this mindset for prevention, we're going to size it up. Get a handle on portion size. Most of us don't know just how much we're eating. One way to help manage portion size is using the plate method. If you're not using a plate, this handy guide that I will also connect you with will help you estimate portion size. Put foods that don't have labels first on your grocery list. Visit the produce section to stock up on fresh veggies and fruit. Then shop the outside aisles of the store for dairy, eggs, and lean meat. As Dr. Loveray said earlier, the healthy foods are usually on the outskirts, and that's what we want to do. Use the nutrition facts table to see how many calories and grams of carbs, sugars, and fat are in the food that you choose. Eat a variety of healthy foods, all kinds of foods. Eat different foods from major food groups: veggies, fruits, grains, dairy, and dairy alternatives such as low fat and fat-free milk, yogurt, and other products made from soy, almonds, and cashews, and lean protein. Don't get too hung up on calories, but definitely count them. Next slide. Keep moving. Get active. Our bodies are made to move, and we feel better when we do. Incorporating festivals, dance as much as you want to at a festival. That said, getting started can be a challenge, but one thing is for sure, you won't stick with something that you don't like doing, and you shouldn't have to. There are a lot of ways to get moving. For example, as I said, even when you're going to the festivals, dance as much as you can. Walking is a great physical activity, and just about everyone can do it. Just be sure to check with your doctor before or about the activities that are best for you, and if there are any you should avoid. So set a goal that works for you and gradually work up to being active at a moderate intensity, at least 150 minutes per week. One way to do this is to aim for 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Next slide, please. Track your progress. Watch yourself succeed with a few easy steps. The best way to stick with your goals and keep building on them is to measure them. Research shows that people who keep track of their food, activity, and weight reach their goals more often than people who don't. There are lots of free tracking apps for your phone or tablet. Good old-fashioned pen and paper works too. Some people swear by taking photos of everything they eat and drink to keep them accountable. So use those phones that you have, use those tablets, take the photos, write as much as you can. Next slide, please. Get support. Share your healthy goals and why they're important with your friends and family. Having their support and encouragement can help you stay on track. Consider these few examples of support. Ask a friend, would you like to walk with me after dinner? Or talk to friends about the struggles you're having and ask if they have any advice. Share your successes with people you can trust to encourage you. And who knows, you could even be helping someone you care about prevent type 2 diabetes. Go online. There are a lot of free online resources that can boost your motivation and confidence too. And remember, your doctor, physician assistant, or nurse practitioner can help you meet your goals. Look ahead. I hope this guide has helped you get started down the road to not only preventing type 2 diabetes, but also having more energy, better checkups, and better mental health. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Tammy, for that informative information. And now we will move on to our question and answer segment. Attendees, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those questions in our chat box, and our team members will acknowledge you accordingly. But seeing as though we don't have any immediate questions, I will ask Dr. LaVray and Tammy to answer a few questions. And you can just come off mute to answer these few preliminary questions for our guests on today. Question number 1. What are some factors that you think are most predictive of successful compliance with diabetes treatment? That can be for Dr. LaVray or for Tammy.
Want to go for it, Tammy? Okay, I'll go for it. So I think Tammy kind of touched up on this a little bit in life, right? It's hard to do things you don't want to do, right? So I think and also it's hard to wake up at 5 to go exercise, right? So we kind of have to we know ourselves, first of all. And so we have to meet ourselves in a place where we're going to do well. So I think simplifying things, being honest with people who are prescribing your medicine. So a lot of times my patients will say, Doc, I can't do that. I can't. And I totally understand it. I don't need to know why. I don't even, sure, I ask, well, why? So if it's something that I could easily help with, I could fix, fine. But it's a lot to do. To ask somebody to take pills 3 times a day before they eat every single time, that's a lot, right? So you try to relate to kind of what are we good at? Well, we're good at things we like. We know it's going to result in something good, and things that we stick with. So I would rather you take not an ideal sort of medicine recipe or situation, or maybe not a perfect cardiovascular prevention recipe, but if you're going to stick with something and you're going to always do it. So I think setting up alarms is a good way, kind of in general, practical tips. Doing it at a time like a weekly medicine, I'll tell my patients, do it on a church day or some day that's significant to you, that ooh, it's my church day, it's my medicine day, or it's my whatever day you pick. It doesn't have to be church day. I use a lot of church examples because a lot of my patients will actually say that. They'll say, Doc, yeah, that's perfect. Someday I could do that just before church or just after church. And then using the pill box, I think, is huge. And we joke around saying, if you haven't taken your medicine, it's sitting there waiting for you. So you really know if you did it or not, especially for people who may have 20 pills to take care of. So those are a couple of just practical things I could think of.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. LeBray. And we do have a two-part question in our chat from Chrissy Smith. It says, what range should the normal A1C look like? And part two, what should one do if they are in pre-diabetes range?
Okay. So I'll take the first part for sure if Tammy doesn't mind. I think A1C, and we talk about this. So Tammy and I are both in this diabetes echo for Louisiana, right? And so we meet every 2 weeks and talk about everything diabetes. So by the way, if any of you are interested, please email us and we could get you connected. But essentially, what we talk about a lot is individualizing everything, really, including A1C, individualize the medications, individualize the treatment in general, individualize your recommendations, individualize A1C, blood pressure, everything should be individualized. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that, I'll use very extreme examples to get the picture kind of across. If you have a 90-year-old lady with diabetes whose life expectancy is maybe what, 5 years, 10 years max, probably not that much. We don't have to shoot for the stars. We are going to avoid hypoglycemia. So think of it as more of let's just not have big problems. Let's not have lows for sure. And let's not have super highs like 400s. Anything in this range of A1C around 8 probably is fine. Again, and also don't use medications that could cause dizziness and things that will get 91-year-old into hospital, right? We need to kind of prevent catastrophes. Now, the opposite end of that is a 35-year-old that just got diagnosed with diabetes. So that person's going to live with diabetes for about maybe 50 years, hopefully, if not more than that, right? That person, again, they're young, they may be healthy otherwise. We need to be very strict. We need to make sure things are kind of the best order we can, preventing cardiovascular complications. So using the latest and the greatest drugs that have proven cardiovascular risk lowering. And then their A1C should be, I have patients less than 6. So yes, guidelines say less than 7 in general. And that's a great blanket statement for probably 70% of people. But then why not go below 7, below the pre-diabetes range, below 6 to 5 point something, if there's no issues otherwise, if you're not causing hypoglycemia, if they don't have nausea, if they don't have side effects or whatnot. Right? So why not make that diabetes patient look like people who don't have diabetes in terms of their glucose, if you can? So again, it's a wide range. 7 is a good number. I'm cautious putting people under 7 if they have hypoglycemia, if they're older, if they have lots of complications, if they are at a job where a hypoglycemia could be very dangerous, like a truck driver or a bus driver. So that's kind of a long answer, but please kind of individualize. Look at what their life is about, what their risks are about, and then kind of come up with some sort of around 7, but may not be 7 for everybody. And
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. LeBray. Terry Roberts dropped in the chat, any questions about the Diabetes Echo program can be sent directly to wellahead.projectecho@la.gov. And Dr. LeBray, if you do not mind, I have one last question for you today before we wrap up. Can you briefly discuss some of the key health promotion recommendations to, one, improve care, enhance quality of life, and prevent complications? I know you covered some of that in your presentation.
Yeah, so prevent complications, really follow what your providers tell you. If I say, please have an exam once a year to check your eyes, I think really you got to do that for yourself. You want to make sure your eyes are okay, or feet or whatnot. So kind of those, we know it's you could Google anything. People with diabetes, what should I be doing yearly? It's going to come up. So I think those are complication prevention is the key. So if you don't have complications, then you have time to figure things out otherwise. If you start having complications, then things just get a little bit harder. Tell me those two first. So that's the last point you said, and you had 2 more. I'm sorry.
Yes, health promotion in regards to improving care and enhancing quality of life.
Improving care, enhancing quality of life. So again, make it easy, make it doable, make it simple. Kind of pick a habit that you could change and just go with it for the next whatever it is. So the easiest one I talk about with my patients is switching your drinks from sweet to non-sweet. All of it, not once a week are you having anything. Nope, just switch the whole thing. Because once you know how we are, we're human. So if you let me have something once, I want it twice. If you let me twice, I want it 3 times. And then you have to make these difficult decisions and you burn yourself out and cause unhappiness because now you feel bad because you had the Coke, right? If you just cut that whole thing out and you're doing everything diet, which these days they really taste pretty good. I've tried all kinds of diabetes kind of section of sugar-free drinks. And truly, like, I mean, yes, there's a little bit of weird taste here or there. But again, once you switch, you're never going to think about the other. And it's a decision made. You approach a place, you're having a diet, whatever, no decisions, no fatigue. Whereas if you're thinking Coke, you're kind of like, ah, should I do Coke? Should I not? Let me think. I'll do a salad. I'll do a Coke. You just exhaust yourself. So I think that's an easy thing. And then again, making moves that you could sustain. So you cannot fix it all today. I tell my patients, you cannot get a PhD degree tomorrow. So you go little by little. You take a class in whatever, and then you take another class and kind of do this bits by bits, right? So kind of making decisions that are easy, like switching to diet drinks. That's easy decision, and it helps you daily decide, right? So some sort of whatever you're bothered by or whatever you prioritize on your list, make it simple and easy to do, and it'll give you that boost of confidence, like, oh, look at that, I quit smoking. I could do the next step. Oh, I'm very good at this. I changed to my diet drinks. So you kind of you push yourself up a little bit. So those are kind of simple again, but I think they make a huge difference day to day in your sugars. And then ultimately, when you're good at taking care of your sugars, you kind of feel like you're in charge.
Yes, very helpful information, Dr. LaVray. Seeing as though we have no more questions here in our chat, next we will hear from our Bureau Director with closing remarks, Ms. Avis Richard.
Thank you, Tiffany. And thank you, Dr. LaVray. Thank you, Tammy, for the awesome presentation. And Tiffany, I think one of the questions in the chat was, what happens if you're in the pre-diabetes range? So I have a personal relationship with that question because I was once told that I was in the pre-diabetes range, but I took it as a warning sign. And I think those tips that Dr. LaVray shared with us in terms of maintaining a healthy lifestyle and weight are cornerstone to that, because those were many of the things that I did to reverse that. And it is reversible if you're at the pre-diabetes stage. So I think walking, drinking more water, eating better. Now, Dr. LaVray, my weakness is sweet, so I'm trying to manage that as well. But sleep, getting more sleep. So I'd like to thank you both for the education that you shared with us today. It has been phenomenal, and I appreciate the listening audience as well. Thank you, Tiffany.